Hi everyone, I'm Racer Andy. This is a brief introduction to the Racing TrakBox. The Racing TrakBox is a data acquisition system. Data acquisition is the process of measuring things in the real world, then converting the results of those measurements to digital format, which can then be saved for use later. The Racing TrakBox can record things such as vehicle speed and location, and save them to a file which may then be viewed on a computer, laptop, or tablet. The first and most important thing to remember about the Racing TrakBox is that as soon as it's plugged into a power source, it starts up and runs continuously. It only begins recording, however, once it senses the vehicle is moving. The Racing TrakBox is intended to be used only during legal sanctioned motorsports events. Remember to always obey the laws in your area. Now, to better understand how the TrakBox works, let's take a look inside. Here is a view with the lid snapped off. I'll explain what each of the components do, and that will help you understand more about how it works. In the upper left corner is the environmental sensor. It can report temperature, humidity, and atmospheric pressure. Below on the left is the GPS unit. Most people know what a GPS is. It can report speed and location. Next up is the real-time clock on the lower right. It is capable of keeping time very accurately and reports date and time of day. Above that on the right is the IMU. An IMU is an inertial measurement unit. In simple terms, it can report changes in motion or direction. I'll explain more about that in a moment. Above the IMU on the right is the SD card module. This is where you place a micro SD card to which your data is recorded. On the top in the center is a small LED display. The main function of the display is to assure the unit is running properly. And lastly, down here on the bottom is a microcontroller. You can think of a microcontroller as a little tiny computer. All the functionality TrakBox runs on this little computer. What makes the Racing TrakBox such a powerful tool is how accurate the measurements are and how often the measurements are taken. The Racing TrakBox records all the sensor's data at almost 100 times per second. So now that you've been introduced to each of the components, we can talk a little bit more about how you can use this tool to help tune your racer. For racing purposes, of all the components in the Racing TrakBox, the IMU is the real rock star here. The inertial measurement unit actually has three components inside. It has an accelerometer, a gyrometer, and a magnetometer. All three work in three axes. That's back and forth, side to side, and up and down. As the name implies, the accelerometer senses acceleration. In other words, changes in the forces acting on the vehicle. Often this is used with the measurement unit of a G-force. Have you ever wondered how your phone knows to change orientation when you turn it? It has an accelerometer inside. So how can an accelerometer help me tune my racer? At the most basic level, an accelerometer can record outright performance very accurately. For instance, how hard is the vehicle accelerating? How hard is it decelerating? In other words, slowing down. How hard can it turn around a corner? What makes this extremely useful is also being able to record your speed and location very accurately. The GPS in your phone typically records your location about once per second. The TrakBox records your location and speed at almost 100 times per second. And it records your location usually within about 3 feet or a meter of accuracy. The most important aspect of how the Racing TrakBox works may be its ability to do all this with very little human intervention. You basically plug it in and go racing. It keeps records of your performance and the conditions while you're on track, so you don't have to on a busy racing weekend. I hope now you understand a little bit more about how the racing TrakBox works and what it is. Let's talk about how to install the TrakBox in your vehicle. As you can see, the case has mounting holes. In a competition vehicle, it is suggested that you use appropriate fasteners to firmly mount the TrakBox to the chassis of the vehicle. Try to mount the TrakBox in the center of the vehicle. In other words, about halfway between the front and back wheels and about halfway between the left and right wheels. This isn't a strict requirement. The TrakBox will work no matter where you mount it. It's usually a good idea to mount it inside the driver's compartment. The TrakBox is not waterproof. Orient the TrakBox as shown, with the little screen facing the front of the vehicle and the end where the cable comes out facing towards the back of the vehicle. Try to mount it on a flat surface. To power the TrakBox, you can use anything you use to charge your cell phone. This can be a cord plugged into your vehicle, like a charger cord, or it can be a cell phone charging battery, often called a brick. Typically running on a cell phone charging battery or brick, the TrakBox will run for days if not weeks. The racing TrakBox doesn't have an on-off button or a switch. If you plug it in, it starts up and runs continuously. It doesn't begin to record data, however, until the vehicle is actually in motion or it's moving. When the vehicle stops moving, the TrakBox stops recording. When the vehicle begins moving again, it starts recording again. Another neat feature of the TrakBox is that you can connect the TrakBox with a hotspot on your cell phone, and then your cell phone can be used as a speedometer display. I hope you've enjoyed this brief introduction to the racing TrakBox. My Race Data promotes the idea of open source software and open source hardware. The TrakBox is a great example of open source hardware. If you go to our website, you can follow the link to the team's GitHub repository, and you can see parts lists, a wiring diagram, a circuit schematic. If you can solder, you can build one yourself. The firmware the TrakBox runs on is also easily downloaded for free. The firmware is open source, so you can download it, change it, or customize it in any way you please. We believe supporting open source is a way to help all of us build safer and quicker racing vehicles. Thanks for listening. This is Racer Andy.